Good evening and welcome to Special Assignment. I'm your host, Ashraf Garda. In this week's episode, we bring you an exclusive interview with a woman that took center stage in a high-profile drug mule case, Tessa Beertje. Producer Frank Farrow traveled to Brazil, where he interviewed Beertje, where she's been incarcerated inside a South American jail ahead of her expected release on parole. Beertje is the longest-serving South African female inmate in that prison, having been jailed in 2008 for drug trafficking. We talked to Beertje about the very recent passing away of her mother, Marie Swanepoel. Beertje's mother fought an endless battle for her daughter's freedom and was instrumental in the conviction of the former wife of the State Security Minister, Cheryl Twele, and her co-accused Frank Nabalisa, who recruited Beertje as a drug mule. Tonight's story is called City of Zombies.
Marie Swanepoel waited 5 long years to see her daughter come home from a Brazilian jail. But whilst she was preparing for the big day, a sudden illness cut her life short.
It was a shock.
Devastating.
We didn't come here. We planned to come see my mom, and we thought that we would visit with her before. And we found out before we even saw her that she passed.
Thousands of miles away, inside a São Paulo jail, her daughter Tessa Beertje is devastated.
It's something I'll never be able to do to my mother. And for more than 5 years, I haven't been able to do that. And it was the only thing that was keeping me going.
With her mother no longer around, Tessa feels lost. What's worse is that when she is released, she will not be flying home to her family.
The South African women, when they are set free, they are legal zombies because they don't have documents, they cannot work, and they cannot use banks to send money back to South Africa.
The streets of Brazil are a dangerous place. The cheap cocaine derivative crack has thousands of homeless people addicted.
É difícil porque tem ditado, você sai da rua, mas a rua nunca sai de você. É mais fácil você conseguir crack do que você conseguir prato de comida.
It's on these streets that Tessa will have to find her own way when she's released on parole. She'll have to serve out her full sentence in Brazil before she's free to go home. I arrive at Guarulhos International Airport in São Paulo. With only a few months left to the World Cup in June 2014, it appears the festivities here have already begun. As the correspondent working in Brazil in 2009, I covered many happy stories about this football-crazy nation. But sadly, the stories that resonated most back home were those about arrested South African drug mules locked up in Brazilian jails.
Mufari wa mfumakazi wa Tessa Beertje vane baba na bukwamani na mfumakazi wa minister wa zwabusibi wa Cheryl Twele kazwa thingiso za zwizibazi badozula miṅwaha miṱanu na miraru dzhele ya la Brazil.
Call it home if you want. This is the place where Tessa Beertje will spend the next few years of her life, a sordid, overcrowded São Paulo prison. Beertje is one of more than 80 South African women serving time here for international drug trafficking. She has been sentenced to almost 8 years behind bars and is sticking to her version of events.
I'm adamant that Cheryl Twele has now sent me to Brazil via Colombia, via Peru, to collect drugs for Frank, Cheryl's friend.
But after all she's gone through, having already served more than half of her sentence, Tessa has forgiven her perpetrators.
If they come to me one day and they say, Tess, I'm sorry, I will be thankful because it's what needs to be done.
So are you ready to forgive Cheryl Twele?
Yes, I've already pardoned. I've already asked God before. Please, God, pardon her. Frank,
Nabolisa?
yes, pardon him. But make them realize what they've done. What they've done was wrong.
Meanwhile, at the Westville prison, where Cheryl Twele is serving a 12-year jail term for recruiting Tessa and another drug mule, Twele recently indicated that she wanted to patch things up with the family. But Tessa's father says Mari told him before she died she would never forgive Cheryl for what she had done.
I wouldn't forgive her either, because I have my feelings over there. The way that she's treated Tessa, the way she treated us in the beginning. Now suddenly when she wants to get out of prison, now she wants help. Now she wants people to see her as a goody-goody, but she's no goody-goody, she's a devil.
In the weeks before her death, Mari Swanepoel was preparing for Tessa's homecoming. She had relocated to Steynsburg, a deep rural town in the Eastern Cape.
Tessie possibly needs the tranquility of this town to find herself again. Be it a short period, it be a long period, Tessie will be for as welcome as Tessie wants to be. Because Tessie will still do what Tessie needs to do. Tessie will see her children. I think that's probably the most important part of her life right now.
After Mari divorced Tessa's father Gert, she met Jake's. The years of Tessa's incarceration took its toll on their marriage, and slowly they drifted apart. Mari's new partner Jake says they were about to get married.
I love her. We had, like I said before, the best time in our lives. She admitted it to me as well. We were actually waiting for Tess to come home, and then we would have got married.
When I interviewed the Swanepoels in 2011, they were already separated. Mari always struck me as an unassuming, quiet woman. But despite her gentle nature, the damning evidence which she collected and presented, including emails from Cheryl's government computer and SMS messages to Tessa, including a lucky coat, is what got her convicted.
I brought back the lucky coat, which Cheryl called a lucky coat or a good luck coat. Either or. As far as I'm concerned, that coat was what was used to identify her with. The people who do the drugs or whatever could recognize Tessa wearing that and allowing her to go through.
Throughout her trial, Cheryl portrayed the image of a fashion magnate, oblivious of the serious charges that she faced. It sent out a strong message to society that somehow she was untouchable. But in the end, the law took its course and she was jailed. Meanwhile, back in Brazil, Tessa is seen as just another drug mule.
We receive in Brazil lots of drug mules. The numbers are increasing, and maybe she will be considered after the end of the process just one more drug mule, without documents, a victim, and with difficulties to have conditional freedom, to buy a flight ticket back to South Africa. We don't have any special treatment to Tessa's case.
Coming up next, we bring you an exclusive interview with Tessa Pietre at the female penitentiary in Sao Paulo.
São Paulo is the biggest metropolis in the southern hemisphere. With a population of more than 11 million people, this bustling city has more than 7 million cars on the road on any given day. Millions of motorboys who have scant regard for the rules of the road run errands across a city that never sleeps. We are on our way to the female penitentiary in Santana to interview Tessa Pietre. I last spoke to her a few years ago.
And what has happened to your life since we last spoke more than 4 years ago?
Recently I've had a traumatic time because of my mom passing, which has been a big thing because she was the one that was my everything.
About 80% of her fellow inmates are South African women who have either dabbled in drugs, were addicted to drugs, or became drug couriers for a small profit. As for Tessa, she claims she was duped.
I've never been a person that's mixed in with people that deal with drugs and things. But I've seen that, I'd say about 80% of the people come in mixing with people or have been users. And they are at least rehabilitated somehow.
I approached the ITTC, a faith-based organization that assists women prisoners in the state of São Paulo. Sister Michael Nolan says South Africa continues to lead the ranking in the numbers of jailed drug mules in the state of São Paulo.
When we started this work 12 years ago, there were 40 foreign women here in Brazil, in São Paulo, in jail. Now, taking those who are in the closed prisons, those who are on work release programs or other programs, we have about 700 now in the state of São Paulo, and about 70 of them are South African. The South African women continue to lead the list of the countries involved.
There is currently one South African baby in jail, and another one is on its way. Drug cartels target pregnant women, which makes them less suspicious when carrying drugs. Tessa says her biggest regret is the time she's been away from her daughters. She last saw them more than 5 years ago.
I've written to them. My mom's been the one that's taken the letters, and I've given the letters to her. But for some reason, my mom did not want me directly to write to them. I don't know what her reasons are. That reason, I will never know.
Tessa says she's not sure if her daughters ever got the letters she wrote from prison. At the funeral of their granny, the two girls, now in their teens, were inconsolable. She says before her mother died, she had asked her to forgive Cheryl for what she had done to the family.
Forgiveness is one of the most important things because you need peace. And without forgiveness, you cannot have peace. I've once written to Mom and I've said to her, forgive those people. She wrote back, it's difficult. But I've had to decide. They've done what they've done, and I leave it in God's hands. What happens to them, I don't want to know.
Sister Michael Nolan says children and families of drug mules are the ones that suffer most, whilst their mothers spend long years in jail. She says they're working on policy to recognize drug mules as victims of human trafficking.
The women that are really mules, that are really victims of trafficking, that they recognize this as a form of human trafficking, just as much as trafficking for sexual purposes is.
Inside the confines of the São Paulo female jail, Tessa Beatrice has had plenty time to think. She says when she's eventually released, she will be taking it one day at a time. But she says it will be much harder with her mother no longer there.
Thank you for everything that you've done. That is the most important thing that's kept me strong. Is the words, the physical touch from your loved one. You need that. You need to be able to hold a person and say, I love you. And that's a chance I will never have for my mother.
In a moment, we investigate what possibly awaits Beatrice out in the streets of Brazil, where crime is rife and drugs are freely available.
We approached the Public Defender's office in São Paulo to get a better understanding on the complexities of Brazil's penal code. Having completed more than half of her sentence, Tessa is already expected to be out on parole, but the 10 kilograms of cocaine she was caught with weigh heavily against her being pardoned. Public Defender João Chaves says they've exhausted all legal processes.
Tessa Betre has been assisted by the Public Defender's Office of Brazil since 2008 when she was arrested. She was condemned in the Guarulhos Law Court, and after that her Public Defender has presented an appeal to the Regional Law Court in São Paulo. This appeal was denied, and we have presented a special appeal and a petition of habeas corpus to the Superior Justice Court of Brazil in Brasília. It's very difficult to change her situation, and we can consider that now she is condemned to a very high penalty.
Tessa is currently the longest-serving South African female prisoner in the state of São Paulo. Sister Michael Nolan explains Brazil's prison system.
What does conditional freedom mean?
Okay. In the Brazilian prison system, you usually have 3 steps. You're in a jail, it's a closed situation. Then you go to a work release program where you can go out to work during the day and come back to the jail at night after a certain period of your sentence. And then after another certain period you can be freed, but you have to report once a month or once a week, depending on what the judge says, to show that you're still here and that you're doing what you're supposed to do. So she would be on that third moment of the sentence.
It's onto these streets that Tessa will be set free when she's released on parole. There are currently 40 South African citizens out on the streets. Tessa will be joining the millions of people in a city where crime is high and drugs are easily available.
We are in the heart of São Paulo. Behind me is Cracolândia. It is here in this park where the city's users openly smoke the highly addictive drug in full view of the police.
In Brazil, you are free to smoke crack. It's only a crime if you are caught selling the drug. Crack, the cheap cocaine derivative, costs about R2 for a hit. It's a drug that has thousands of people addicted.
The use of crack, cocaine, marijuana, or any other drug is not criminalized in Brazil. If someone is arrested in this situation, the police can just indicate him or her to go to a health house to receive addiction treatment.
A few meters away from this mobile police station, 20-year-old Caio has spent the night smoking crack. Operation Belém, a faith-based organization, has tried to rehabilitate the city's crack users by getting them off the streets. As Caio awakes from his crack haze, he tells me we are standing in the center of São Paulo's biggest crack supermarket. He says he enjoys smoking crack cocaine, but the withdrawal symptoms makes him feel guilty.
Então, naquele momento a gente sente uma sensação boa, né? Mas depois vem arrependimento, entendeu? Na hora ali é bom, mas depois que passa vem aquele arrependimento. A gente não queria ter feito aquilo. Eu mesmo sou assim. Quando eu uso, depois vem o arrependimento. Eu fico pensando muito na minha família, fico pensando muito na mulher que eu amo. É sair dessa vida que é difícil, é muito difícil.
A government initiative to shut down Cracolândia has resulted in crack users moving to other parts of the city. Praça da Sé, in the shadow of the cathedral, is another drug hotspot. Here, crack addicts provide a street freak sideshow for passers-by.
It's a problem for the user because the user is not a criminal. The user is someone who has a disease and must be treated and must receive health treatment.
At Cracolandia, I meet 37-year-old Tatiana Perla. She's walking the streets looking for her next fix. She says she's lost count on how many rocks she smokes a day. Tatiana says it's much cheaper for her to buy crack than to buy a plate of food.
É difícil porque tem um ditado, você sai da rua, mas a rua nunca sai de você. É muito fácil. É mais fácil você conseguir crack do que você conseguir prato de comida.
We heard that there were a number of recently paroled South Africans living in Cracolandia, so we decided to investigate. But we were caught in the middle of a police raid. Within minutes, Cracolandia is ablaze as the crack users turn on the police. In the middle of all the chaos, a passerby is attacked. Police reinforcements are called in, but the drug peddlers got away. This man says drug vendors live amongst the users and in the surrounding buildings, which makes it very difficult for police to identify them.
You are free to smoke crack and cocaine, but it's very dangerous because in some point of this trajectory you can be considered as a drug dealer.
Meanwhile, Tessa Beetge says she will decline if she's released on conditional freedom. She says she prefers to remain in jail, where she feels much safer.
I am a lot safer in the prison than what I am outside. I will ask the judge, I want to stay.
So the day you leave Brazil, you want to leave for once and for all?
Yes, I do not want to see the streets of Brazil. And when I leave, I want federal this side and federal that side.
Meanwhile, the Brazilian authorities have indicated they are ready to send South African prisoners home, but the South African government is not willing to enter into a prison transfer agreement.
South Africa don't want to sign any kind of agreement, of transfer agreement. Is an information from Brazilian government. I don't know if it's true, but we don't have this agreement and we don't have any perspective of an agreement in short time.
Dirko says it's not government policy for convicted citizens to serve their sentences in South African jails, and this policy is not about to change anytime soon.
I think it's mainly influenced by the principle that justice needs to be seen to be served, and one of the ways of demonstrating that is people serving time where the crimes have been committed. So we have had that policy of saying, if you commit a crime, then we'll serve it where you have committed it.
It's not certain if Tessa Beetge will succeed in a bid to remain in jail, or whether the judge's ruling will ultimately force her onto the streets of São Paulo.
Now, I'd like you to share your views on this story, and if you do so, use the hashtag Special Assignment on Twitter. You can also comment on the official Special Assignment Facebook page, or you can email us at truth@sabc.co.za. Well, finally, messages of congratulations have been streaming in following our highlight show last week, in which we showcased 3 winning entries by producer Adele van Niekerk and Hazel Friedman that made a clean sweep at the Weber Wenzel Legal TV Journalist of the Year Awards a week ago. Now, Celine Brown tweeted saying, "Shocking investigations, difficult to watch, but so important. Kudos to the team. Well deserved." And Henry Kentani emailed, "It's exposés like these that make a difference and change the course of our society for the better." Well, that's it for tonight. Join us again next week when we point out the issues that matter.